88% of organizations report using AI in at least one part of their business. That's almost everybody. But only 6% say that it qualifies as a genuinely high performer who are seeing results from their adoption of AI. And read that again. 88% using AI versus 6% actually seeing a result. Now, that's not a technology gap. That's not even a budget gap. It is an advantage gap. Everyone's adopting AI, but almost nobody's actually winning because of it. So Marcus is standing in front of his team at their weekly team meeting with a great big slide that says AI-powered growth strategy on it. But 3 months later, his CRM has a new chatbot, fantastic. It's bolted onto the intake form. It absolutely answers faster. It still routes every lead into the same black hole that his sales process has always routed them into, and nothing's actually gotten better. It's just got faster at not working. And that's not an AI problem. That's a process problem from 2016, just dressed up wearing a 2026 costume. Because things like 10 years ago, having a CRM was an edge. If you had one and it was actually set up, you looked more professional than the guys who were running his pipeline out of a notebook. Today, having a CRM isn't an edge. It's just table stakes. Everyone should have one. And if you don't, reach out, we can sort that out for you. But here's the part that should bother you more than it does, right? Is that most firms still don't have a working CRM. They just have an expensive contact list with a login screen. And according to Thomson Reuters' 2026 AI and Professional Services report, generative AI inside professional services organizations has nearly doubled in the last year. It's now about 40% right now compared to 22% the same time last year. So adoption isn't the bottleneck. And to be honest, it never really was, right? AI is climbing the exact same curve that CRM has climbed, just faster. And in the same cases, the same curve that lots of technologies before that also climbed. And if you don't catch what's actually happened with CRM, you're going to make the same identical mistake with AI, just at a higher speed and potentially with higher stakes. Because here's the number that should stop you mid-scroll. Across industries right now, 88% of organizations report using AI in at least one part of their business. That's almost everybody. But only 6% say that it qualifies as a genuinely high performer who are seeing results from their adoption of AI. And read that again. 88% using AI in some capacity versus 6% actually seeing a result. Now, that's not a technology gap. That's not even a budget gap, right? Most of these firms can afford the tools, but it is an advantage gap. Everyone's adopting AI in some capacity in their business, but almost nobody's actually winning because of it. And here's the stat that explains why. Only 18% of professionals say that their organizations even tracks the ROI on the AI they're using. So the number may not be 6%, it may be 10 or 15, but I don't know, because most people can't tell if it's working or not. They just know that they're using AI now in the same way that 10 years ago that they could tell that you had a CRM, and 20 years before that, I had an Excel spreadsheet, right? But without being able to tell you what had actually changed about their close rate or their business efficiency. Adoption is easy. Almost anything and anybody can turn something on. The advantage is what happens when the thing you turned on is amplifying the business that already works. Now, we pulled out some things last week from the call with Matt Zambruski about, a process around adoption of AI. And the first one is choosing a platform to run it on. The second one is identifying the baseline, right? And that's absolutely key, because if we don't identify a baseline, we can't identify easy wins, and we can't iterate from there to show what experiments are working in our business to improve the efficiency of what it is we do, either on increasing our revenue or decreasing our costs, and then double down on those things that actually work or not. And I want to be really specific about what that means, because fix your processes first sounds like a nice platitude, but I don't do platitudes on this show. Right? If your intake process can't tell a qualified lead from a tire kicker, the AI will respond to the tire kicker in 4 seconds instead of 4 hours. Congratulations, right? You've now qualified tire kickers even faster. Woohoo! That's awesome, right? And just wasted your sales team's time. If your follow-up is inconsistent, some leads get 3 touches and some get none, depending on how busy your team was this week. AI will generate more follow-ups. Fantastic. But it won't generate consistent follow-ups because consistency was never a tooling problem. It's a process ownership problem. And AI just writes the inconsistent version quicker and sometimes even in better grammar. This is the part that nobody's selling you, that AI tools will say out loud. The tool doesn't discriminate between a good system and a broken one. It just accelerates whichever one you hand it. Marcus's chatbot didn't fix his lead routing. It just meant his broken pipeline, right, now happens instantly rather than eventually. Now that's important, right? We know speed to lead is an absolutely critical thing. You're going to probably go and close 300 to 400% more leads because of it. But you're also going to get more time wasters in the process, right? From the outside, faster failure can look like a lot like progress for a quarter, but the numbers catch up to the story. And that's what we were talking about before and why organizations are not seeing the results from their AI projects. Now, here's the bit I actually want you to sit with after this episode. You're not behind because you haven't adopted enough AI. In fact, almost nobody's behind for this reason anymore. The tools are absolutely everywhere and they're relatively cheap compared to the cost of the staff that you were doing the task before. And your competitors have them too, right? There's no barrier to entry or very little barrier to entry. If AI adoption alone was going to separate you from the pack, the window's basically already closed. 88% of organizations have already walked through it. You're behind because you're not about to bolt speed onto a business that was never actually diagnosed, right? And speed doesn't fix the leak. It just means you lose the client faster, respond to the wrong lead faster, and forget to follow up faster. Your CRM is moving from the thing that did the work to the brain of the organization that your AI needs to check back with all the time. And if you don't have one, you've got checking on nothing. The businesses that will pull ahead over the next 3 years won't be the ones who've adopted AI first. They'll be the ones that did the boring work before they touched it. They've mapped the actual process. They've found where their leads go quiet. They've fixed who owns the follow-up and cleaned up the database that's been sitting untouched for several years. Then, and only then, the layered AI on top of something that already converts. That's the entire difference between that 88% and the 6%. Not the tool, but the foundation underneath it. Now, if you listen to this and you listened to last week's episode with Matt, you'll already know this and you don't need me to tell it, that your team has started using AI somewhere in your business, but you genuinely couldn't tell me whether it's actually what's actually changed about your close rate or your follow-up consistency. That's exactly the conversation worth having before you spend another dollar on more tools, right? Head on over to winmoreclients.com.au and book a discovery call. We'll look at what's actually happening underneath the tools you've already got, your CRM, your AI, and whatever's bolted on with Band-Aids, right? We'll figure out whether you're actually building an advantage or just building speed on top of a leak. Next time, we're going to talk about the moment that almost every one of you has lived through or is about to. The day you hire your first salesperson and the day they ask you a question you can't actually answer, which is, where's the pipeline? And then you realize there wasn't actually one, right? There was just you remembering things.